How did that happen? This process was so rushed, really at the last minute. The lawyers in the White House were staying up all night, all of them, trying to get this done in time, and naturally sloppiness prevailed.
Hi, I'm Maddie, Hale, and welcome to the Trump Report. Today we've had Larry Sabato on. He's the director of Center for Politics. He's spoken to us about the JFK files, whether Donald Trump broke the law when he uploaded them. There were a few things that he was meant to redact but didn't. So all that, as well as the conversation between Trump and Putin, whether a deal will actually get over the line. He's a little bit skeptical about that. So all that today on the Trump Report. You can watch us every day, Monday through Friday on Times Radio's YouTube. Larry Sabato, director for the Center for Politics. Thank you so much for joining the Trump Report today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to get into all the international relations. We're going to get into the phone call between Putin and Trump, and then his phone call with Zelensky. But to start off, you and I'm going to ask you about what you found from those released JFK files. You've gone through, you've sifted through. You told me off camera that you're about 20% through. So far in that 20%, what has been your initial response to this?
Yes, and just for the edification of your viewers, this is a very laborious process. You have to compare each page that's just been released with the original document, assuming you have it or it had been released in an earlier year or decade. And you have to visually determine whether any of the redactions, short or long, in prior releases has been unredacted. And anyone who is claiming they have been through, whether it's 60,000 or 80,000 pages, we've heard two different numbers, is not being truthful. There is no way anyone could have done this. There's no index. There's no way to search it. No table of contents. There's only one way to do it, and that's to have a team looking at each page. So it takes a long time to do this. In the 20% that we've covered, we've actually found quite a bit, but it's not about the Kennedy assassination. There are references to the Kennedy assassination, but I think we've learned more about the CIA than we have anything else. There are some incredible stories in there that have been hidden for a long time. And details on, for example, a massive mail tampering scheme that the CIA ran out of New York, in which they had 200 to 300 full-time employees doing nothing but covering every single parcel and letter from the Soviet Union to the United States and from the United States to the Soviet Union. It was about 500,000 a month. They focused on 200,000 of them. And in general, per month, they sequestered about 1,200 letters or packages for intense scrutiny, meaning that they looked for codes and potential spies and all kinds of other things. But, this is all illegal according to the mail tampering statutes. And it was illegal back then. This operated from the late 1950s until ? It went at least through the mid-60s. It may have gone well beyond that. But just that one operation is going to encourage people to do a lot more research on what the CIA was doing at the time.
Larry, sorry, are you saying that in order for Donald Trump to have obtained these files and the way in which he released them to the world, did he break the law in doing that?
Well, he claimed, first of all, there would be no more redactions. Totally untrue. These documents, at least the 20% we reviewed, are shot full of continued redactions. Some things were unredacted that had been redacted in prior releases. And that's all to the good. I'm delighted that we have that transparency. But he pledged no redactions, didn't even come close to that. And there's at least one document that has a list of people with their social security numbers. Some of them are still living. It is illegal to release individuals' social security numbers. That should have been redacted with an explanation that there are individuals here with their social security numbers and we're not allowed to release those. But they were released. How did that happen? This process was so rushed, really at the last minute. The lawyers in the White House were staying up all night, all of them, trying to get this done in time, and naturally sloppiness prevailed.
Wow, that is so interesting, Larry, because there's been so much conversation surrounding even how much access Doge and Elon Musk would have to people's personal accounts. There was speculation that Elon Musk would have access to people's social security numbers, which would be a cause for concern. I spoke to a former CIA agent, hacking expert, that said that that was probably the biggest concern, that Elon Musk having access to so many people's accounts, their social security numbers, their bank accounts, would be enticing for Russia or another foreign agent to hack into the United States' system. So the fact that the Trump administration have actually voluntarily offered up this information to the public is kind of concerning, that it was done in such a rush.
Well, absolutely. Remember, some of these documents are more than 61 years old. So it's not as though they haven't had time to go through there. And Trump pledged to do this for months. So there was enough time, but I'm sure there were other duties. I do want to note, though, that the danger with Elon Musk is widespread because his financial interests would benefit in some ways from having access to this data, could benefit enormously. Well, where are the controls? Who is carefully watching what information he's transferring in a way that he can use personally? These are important questions. They're questions we can't answer yet, but they're sure questions that we want answered.
Well, let's jump straight into Elon Musk, Larry, because he's been a bit of a controversial figure since he started fronting up the Department of Efficiency, because his aim is to basically get rid of $2 trillion off the federal deficit, which no one can disagree. The United States has got a very high deficit right now, so it's just more the way in which he's been doing it by slashing government spending. He was in an interview with Fox News and he said, when you take away people's fraud, the money they're receiving fraudulently, they get very upset. They basically want to kill me, although I've never done anything harmful. He was saying he's been a bit of a target as of late. We saw his showrooms and a few Teslas being lit on fire. What's your response to that comment from Elon Musk?
Well, I don't support vandalism or damage to cars or anything else in any form. But we have to look at what he's done. He says he's done nothing to harm people. He's called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Uh, Millions and millions of Americans depend upon Social Security, and this is not a gift from the government. They've been paying in, we've been paying in our whole lives as we work. And so what he described it as is totally wrong. He claims there are hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud, waste, and abuse in Social Security and a lot of other things. It's just ridiculous. There isn't that much fraud and abuse. There's some. There isn't any large government program. And yes, we should root that out. Look, Elon Musk is a target because of what he's doing. Look at what he has done to USAID. Look at what he has done. He has destroyed a fine organization that has saved millions of lives around the globe. And he has done it in such a careless manner that we have vaccines rotting on the shelves. We have all kinds of medical equipment and food and other aid not reaching people who desperately need it, who are dying of hunger all around the globe. And it's there. And some of it's already been paid for, although he's canceled contracts when in fact he has no right to do so. This is a disaster of monumental proportions. It's going to be analyzed as long as there is a United States of America. And that's the agency that most people think is wasteful. I don't happen to think it's wasteful, but a lot of other people do, because it has been criticized so heavily by Republicans over the years, although many Republicans have supported it. And of course, they've turned on a dime because Donald Trump doesn't like it, and Elon Musk doesn't like it. So it's a sad situation, and we need to remember lives are at stake. Millions of lives will probably be lost because of the destruction of USAID and other organizations, not to mention what's happening with climate change, what's happening with a whole wide range of ills Trump has just announced that the education department is going to be completely disemboweled. They do a lot of good. Most of the education work occurs at the state and local level. But what the federal government does is to help young people afford college, for example. Well, who's going to do that? The states can't afford to do it. It's if we get into that, that'll be the rest of our time. And it's outrage upon outrage upon outrage.
Well, I was going to ask you about the Department of Education, Larry. We won't stay in it, but I think one of the major concerns from Republicans and from MAGA supporters is basically the curriculum for students. It's all about this critical race theory. It's all about woke ideologies, all that stuff. So that's what they're concerned about. The thing is that the Department of Education doesn't dictate the school curriculum, so that's wrong in that area. What they do is distribute funding and for schools, especially lower income schools, and as you say, help children get into university and especially impoverished students. So how detrimental will it be if this is, just for our viewers, it does need to be passed through Congress. If it is passed through Congress, how detrimental will this be for the education of so many Americans, but especially those from very low income families?
Yes, well, I don't think it can pass through Congress because there are too many programs that affect even Republican districts and Republican families. So I'm not so worried about that, but he's not bothering with Congress. Congress has knelt before him. The Republicans have, and they control the majority in both houses. They have knelt before Trump. They give him whatever he wants. There are hardly any Republicans. I can count them on one hand who will stand up to Trump and criticize anything that he does or say no to anything he asks. So we're in a difficult situation. But beyond that, on education, you mentioned, for example, critical race theory. That is a theory that is discussed in law schools. It has no practical implications for elementary and secondary education or even for undergraduate curriculums in colleges and universities. This is a phony issue. The current governor of Virginia, who's a Republican and a Trumpy Republican at that, used that issue, that non-issue, to get elected governor. And we're faced with a crisis at virtually every level in education and lots of other things because of what is being done, not just by Elon Musk, but by the rest of Trump's operatives and minions, and the way in which they're doing it. If you have to let people go, and anybody who's run an organization from time to time has to let someone go, has to fire someone. But there's a right way to do it, protecting the rights of that individual, and there's a wrong way to do it. And Trump and Musk are writing a new book that I hope no one will read. The wrong way to restructure, to fire people, and to change government. This is going to have consequences for generations.
I mean, you and I, the last time we spoke about the Veterans Affairs, and I was listening to an interview with a Democratic senator on CNN, and he was saying that he'd spoken to numerous veterans that had lost their jobs and how it was affecting them. But Larry, after such a successful mission getting those two astronauts back on Earth, is it clear that Elon Musk needs to be sticking to his jobs at Tesla and Starlink?
I don't think anybody can explain Elon Musk. I'm not sure how his mind works or what makes him tick other than money. And so I really can't speak to him in particular. I do know he's doing enormous damage to a superstructure that has made the United States a successful country and a compassionate country. And as I said, it's going to take generations to repair this if we ever do. Some of the damage may be permanent. And you saw the new rating of happiness per country, and we fall into the lowest level ever. We're 24th in the world. Congratulations to Finland, they're number one. But we ought to be a lot higher than 24, given the wealth that exists in the United States. And money can't buy happiness, but it can rent a lot of it. But we're not, and it's going to get worse.
Larry, we've had a big week of diplomatic relations between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. We've now Trump's brokered a partial ceasefire, 30-day ceasefire, just targeting energy and infrastructure. between Russia and Ukraine. Quite soon into that agreement was done, both countries accused each other of breaking the deal, and Ukraine accused Russia of launching 150 drone strikes. So obviously unexpected, but here we are. My question for you is, Putin agreed with Trump that he would start negotiating a full end to this war. Do you think this will actually be done? Or are you in the mindset that Vladimir Putin is very much stringing Donald Trump along?
I'm with the latter group. I don't think that Putin is serious about this. He knows what his objectives are, and it's to take Ukraine. He'd prefer it to be sooner rather than later, but if he has to, he'll take it later. And then he's going to target other countries. If I were in the Baltic republics, I think I'd be making sure my passport was up to date. So look, it's obvious what's going on. And the motivation for Donald Trump is not that this is saving, millions of lives or whatever he has claimed. The motivation is he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize like Barack Obama, his great nemesis, did. Now, I don't know a thing about the Nobel Peace Prize other than what's been published, and most of it's kept secret. But I can't believe they would be dense enough to give the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump, regardless of what he achieves. It would be derided for forever, as long as the Nobel Peace Prize exists.
Are you worried, Larry, that Volodymyr Zelensky is so traumatized from that altercation in the Oval Office and from any sort of backlash with the United States that he will kind of give in to Donald Trump if he puts forward a less than ideal agreement, full peace agreement to Ukraine, which might end up him having to give up that 20% of occupied Russian land, might have to give up any security and protection from the United States, so that Zelensky is basically left with a deal that Donald Trump presents to him that isn't really in the best interests of Ukrainians?
Well, Zelensky is a strong person. That's obvious to anybody, given the way that he has survived and conducted the war over these past 3 years. And even before then, he proved his mettle. But I would say about Zelensky, he is between a rock and a hard place. He cannot do without the U.S. assistance. He just can't. And Europe can't make up for it. They can help, but they can't provide what the United States has been providing, particularly in terms of war materiel. So he has to do what he can to mollify Trump without handing Ukraine over to the I almost said Soviet Union, because it's reminding me of the Soviet Union, to Putin's Russia. And this is extremely difficult for him, and he's going to have to do things, and Ukrainians are going to have to do things that they would prefer not to do, to say the least. They will have to give up some territory, and that's a great shame, although you never know what the future holds. You never know what's going to happen 50 years from now, 100 years from now. And generally speaking, countries that are in the right and who are not the aggressors, and Ukraine is clearly not the aggressor. They didn't start the war, as Donald Trump said. Given the fact that they have been subject to this Russian terror, I would bet on them for the long term. I really would. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think their territorial integrity will be preserved in the future, if not now.
Oh, well, we hope for that. And I think we hope that if a deal is brokered, Larry, that at least the EU would step up and provide that security and protection if in the event that Ukraine would have to give up certain land and that border would leave them a bit wide open. And so we worry for that. But we'll check back in with you, Larry, in the next few weeks once you've finished sifting through those JFK files, so you can bring us a more in-depth analysis on the Trump report. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I've enjoyed it as always, and good luck with the report.